We look back at surely our biggest interview of the year, well, rather a debate we ourselves didn't even expect. Early August, we were approached by a group called the Concerned Youth of South Africa. They wanted a platform and a right to reply to an interview we did with a lobby group called Below the Line about the legalization of cannabis in South Africa. We were joined by William Wallace from Below the Line, he's here once again today, and a passionate young lady, Mamazane Mapanga, from the Concerned Young People of South Africa. What followed was a heated debate, which later turned into a YouTube sensation, and Mamazane an instant meme on sites like 9gag and Facebook. This interview gave birth to the so-called DaggaDebate here in South Africa, and we've been covering all angles of this debate ever since. Well, as I said, we've invited Mamazane and William back to the show today. Lovely to have you with us.
Lovely to have you too.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have to start with you, Mamazane. You've got quite a following out on social media now. You know, people talk about you a lot. Are you aware of the impact your appearance on the show has had with regards to the DaggaDebate, as we call it now, here in South Africa?
Yes. Yes, I read many comments. I saw myself once again, so I am aware.
You are aware that people went on and made some memes like the one we see here. There's a couple on 9gag. Did that bother you at all, that people would say some things that they've said?
You know what they said to me, it was actually like a crown. I must say it really, really encouraged me and made me to really press on and say no to the legalization of marijuana.
William, that's the position now. You've been sort of synonymous with this debate and synonymous in a way with Mamazane, because you guys had that now infamous debate. How do you view it now, almost six months later?
Very much a positive thing, Evan. I think Ms. Mapanga showed us how absurd prohibition is and not legalizing. The discussion really did dissolve, but it was very entertaining, and I think it's opened a lot of people's eyes. So even though Ms. Mapanga is still against it, I think it brings the conversation to the forefront for both you and the viewers at home.
Now, Mamazane, you know, after our initial discussion, lots of different guests have come to the studio to give us their views. One of the first that came out after your interview was an interview with Peter Yucca from the Central Drug Authority and also Andre du Plessis from the Cannabis Working Group. Let's just have a look at what some of their views are, and then you can maybe comment on how you feel about that.
I've said to you, we are developing our own research documentation and trying to find money to do the research.
Correct.
I also did say we will take into account international evidence that is available.
Okay. Evan, could I just deal with this dangerous claim? Something that's very clear is that cannabis is non-toxic. There is no death that has been caused by cannabis, and the Central Drug Authority is going to be hard-pressed to show that the drug itself is toxic. The claim that cannabis is dangerous and may lead people to some form of psychological problems, the evidence based on that shows that less than 1% of the people that use cannabis may develop some form of psychological problem, and as such, this psychological problem was probably underlying before their cannabis use.
Now, your view has been cannabis makes people crazy, it turns them into violent criminals. There's an alternative view to what you came up with. How do you view that now?
Okay, well, according to some studies that were conducted by Glenn Hudson of the National Institute Drug Abuse, he stated on the 10th of July 2003 that to take marijuana is like taking a chemical shortcut into one's brain, pleasure center. It is not like riding or jumping out of an aeroplane. This is really adding chemicals to your brain, not inducing a normal sensation.
But sugar does the same thing, and that's the thing that we spoke about 5 months ago, and still the whole world's addicted to sugar. But let's before you answer that, William, How do you view that?
I think it paints a picture of what the overall problem is. I don't think it's that that people have, such as Ms. Mapanga, have a problem with dagga. I think they have a problem with people feeling pleasure. And I think that's a discussion for another day, but that seems to be at the heart of it. But if we do look at, and it's very tough in South Africa to look for statistics in this nature, but if we look at the UK, in the last 30 years, cannabis use has doubled. In the last 30 years, schizophrenia has nearly halved. There's been no relationship between cannabis and nuttiness.
And mental illness. And that's what I want you to look at another clip, because straight after the Central Drug Authority, we brought in a clinical psychologist to talk to us about that chemical imbalance that you say it causes in the brain. And this is what the clinical psychologist had to say.
Schizophrenia has a genetic component, so people born with a genetic predisposition to schizophrenia and who abuse drugs like cannabis or even alcohol, they are more likely to have a psychotic episode. So it's a biological factor interacting with an environmental factor that causes people with this genetic predisposition to become mentally ill. It's not to say that cannabis itself will cause that, and the reason I say that is because since the 1960s, cannabis use has been rising incrementally in the world. Personally, I blame the Beatles and Bob Dylan for that. But we don't see a corresponding rise in the rates of schizophrenia as we see with the increased rates of cannabis, which says that if A causes B, when A increases, B should increase. We don't see that.
Yeah. That's a medical professional that says it doesn't cause that, what it claimed to. What do you say to the medical professional?
Okay, just to answer that, well, according to the National
You've come prepared today.
Narcotics Control Board, there is no medicinal use for dagga recognized in any country, and there is no scientific evidence.
No, that's not true.
That the dagga, as such, has any medicinal purposes that has not been substituted by safer drugs.
But it's being used almost globally. William, just answer the question before I talk to you about your research.
Now, I think this is a large problem we face with prohibition, that you can throw any absurd claim out there. We know that cannabis has been patented medicinally in the US by the US government since the 70s. We know it's been used for 5,000 years as medicine, food, fiber. We know that half of the US recognizes dagga as a medical actual component, and we know that there are now pharmaceutical products registered in the UK, for example, Sativex by GW Pharmaceutical, which is a dagga tincture. It's not a pill, it's not a silver bullet, it's not synthetic, it's actual dagga grown in a government-condoned lab and sold to the people as medicine. Not some dodgy under-the-table banky. We are talking physical pharmaceutical companies now making it as medicine.
Okay, well, I'm glad you've mentioned that country. Although dagga is illegal in the US, as you've said, but California became the first state to decriminalize the use of dagga for the so-called medicinal purposes back in 1996. But now, about 175 California cities and 20 countries have already banned retail pot shops. Why? Because dagga is harmful. In one of the most recent bans in Los Angeles, moved to close about 900 dagga dispensaries, citing a major president, saying many cities have struggled to medical marijuana ordinances, but none has a bigger problem like Los Angeles. And just to add
the
on
alternative view is in Colorado, in other states, it's the balance.
Okay, now let's
The thing I want to ask you, though, is we all worry about the youth, young people.
Yes.
That's what you're so passionate about.
Yes, yes.
Now, the question is, would you rather have young people run to the taxi rank and buy something under the table quickly that's been proven to be not even as harmful as some of the other stuff on the market that's legal? Or would you prefer your child to be exposed to it in a more organized way, where they don't deal with criminals?
Okay, I understand. So I choose none of the two options because dagga is harmful. Some of the main negative effects of marijuana are due to the illicit nature, because not only can people have legal action brought against them for growing, selling or buying dagga, but users, they never know exactly what active compounds are in the marijuana they are using, because dagga has the effect to speed up the pulse rate, to the individual.
But so does sugar and so does everything else. Okay, we spoke about alcohol.
Yes.
I want to show you, because we brought in the political parties also to give us their views, and of course, most of them were for the legalization of medical marijuana,
Okay.
some for recreational use. Just have a look at this clip. It's juxtaposing alcohol versus marijuana, and how do you view us? It's the EFF who spoke to us at this point.
You can walk into a bottle store any day and buy a straight of a straw rum. That thing will kill you. That thing is lethal. But we, as a nation and as a people, believe that I will be responsible enough and not kill myself using this drug, which straw rum and alcohol is a drug. And in fact, there's a big argument to be made that alcohol is much more dangerous. The accidents that we experience annually in our roads largely are as a result of consumption of alcohol. So we must, as a nation, permit ourselves a debate on these questions. But on the medical side of things, we should not be debating this. We should be at implementation level. Marijuana, we know its properties, its qualities for health.
Okay. Well,
Are you going to read all the bullet points that you have today?
I'm not going to read them all.
Okay.
But I just want to make this fact to you that legalizing dagga will destroy the chance of having a competent, thoughtful, self-disciplined, hardworking, and efficient society. There is no need to bring tobacco or alcohol into the debate. We are focused on the dagga issue.
No, it's all part of the same thing.
Well,
it's all part of using stimulants in the end, which is part of what we do.
Okay.
Sugar is a stimulant, so is nicotine, and so is marijuana. Let's be honest about it. But we can't police people and tell people, oh, you can have sugar, you can have cigarettes, you can have alcohol, but you can't have X, Y, Z. And then there's the medical argument also behind it.
Okay, well, but as I said at the beginning, there are also harmful substances, as you said, sugar, tobacco, and alcohol. And as concerned young people of South Africa, we would prefer that all those substances are removed to the society as well, because all of them are also harmful.
Even sugar.
Depends how you use it.
You said you love it in your tea the last time I remember. William, how do you view this?
You know, Ms. Mapanga's had her way for a century. Dagga's been illegal for a century now. You've had your way. We do not live in a society that is alcohol-free, sin-free, tobacco-free, dagga-free. We need to look at the situation realistic rather than altruistically. There is no button that we can push that immediately takes these substances out of society. What we need to look at is whether arresting someone and ruining their life and the society around them is the answer for smoking a joint. That is not the answer. You've had it for 100 years of prohibition, and we are literally at record levels of use. So you've had your way. You've had your way for 100 years. We know it doesn't work. Yes, dagga is not a harmless thing, but it is less harmful than tobacco and alcohol. And I think if we're going to be fair in society, let's throw everyone in jail then. To realistically arrest every cannabis user as it stands today, we will need to build 17 prisons a day forever. That is the only answer to getting dagga off the face of the earth. And then people can go to prison where dagga is one of the biggest contraband smuggled in. So I fail to see how the solution is putting cuffs on someone and ruining their life forever with a criminal record just for smoking a joint, whether they're 15 years old or 50 years old.
But I just want to say, you know, actually, one of the most ridiculous or stupid point that has been mentioned is like comparing South Africa to other countries. You know, approximately there are about 190 countries, you know, in the world. And you've just mentioned US. Maybe there are 2 or 3 that have legalized marijuana for the medicinal purposes. But as I've mentioned, look at what is happening in California. All the coffee shops that have been closed down. Look at what is happening in Colorado. The high rate of accidents due to the dagga users, and also most of the
these are not facts.
Well, most of the most people that were admitted into hospitals due to the dagga that they've been using. So just to conclude
this is not a factor. William, just respond to this.
Just to conclude that, it's just to say that dagga is harmful.
I think we need to get Ms. Mapanga's view of the US correct. More than half the states in the US allow medical marijuana.
Yeah.
There are now 4 states, not the 2 last year, there are now 4 states that have legalized recreational marijuana. The District of Washington, which is literally where the White House in America is. So in the White House's backyard, it has now been legalized recreationally. You bring up California. California has had medical marijuana for nearly 20 years, and they have just voted 59% in favor of recreational. Yes, there are growing pains with industries that are a bottleneck for cannabis consumers. They are dealing with a global demand for cannabis. If we were to wipe the slate clean and start over with every country had been allowed to make its own rules, we would not see those problems of bottlenecks such as Amsterdam and California. But let's look at Amsterdam, for example. Amsterdam's crime rates are so low, and remember, Dagga is legal there, that they have started renting out their prison space to their neighboring countries, whereas South Africa is the highest ranked prison population in Africa, 9th in the world. We arrest 165,000 drug users a year, of which only 1% get convicted. Your solution is not on.
Final remark belongs to you. How do you respond to that?
Okay,
the prisons in Holland are empty. They have to rent it out.
Okay, well, but just to answer you on that, which you said about California, one of the generals said that clearly.
Which general?
In this place in California, okay? His name is Vladika. That is his name. He says that a lot of marijuana is being grown in the Central Valley, and it is destined for the mass market and nationwide distribution, not cancer patient. If you want more evidence that growing marijuana is a criminal enterprise, look at what those arrested in connection with the plots are carrying. They're carrying guns, they're carrying knives and other weapons, including other harder drugs.
I don't know where your research comes from. It doesn't even have a name.
Okay.
But this, we've run out of time.
Okay, just give me time.
We've run out of time.
Okay, I understand.
Thank you for joining us today. It's been wonderful to have you back with us. Our Newsmaker of the Year for, well, you know you've gone around the world more than 150,000 views.
Yes.
On social media. So fantastic. Mamazani Mapanga from the Concerned Young People of South Africa, and then from below the line, William Wallace. Thank you for joining us. It was our biggest interview of the year. If you've missed it, you should go and have a look at it. #DaggaDebate on all social media channels is where you'll find it. And we'll put today's interview there as well. But let's have a look.